Hi, how's it going? Be sure to fast forward to 7 minutes and 40 seconds to skip all the intro and just start the story immediately. Thank you. What you're going to be seeing during this intro while I'm talking are the character profile pictures, essentially, that I'll be using, the characters in the story, as well as possibly some still images. Alright, so this is a story that I've been writing for quite a while now. I haven't posted anything, mostly because I've been focusing on this. I have a couple other stories that are going on that I'm going to start working on, because this story's done. And I'll hopefully start posting, on a more regular basis. This story is... I like it a lot, I did cut it short at the end. I basically took out a whole chapter because I didn't realize while writing it how long it was until I put it through the voice generation, the AI voice generation, because these are not real people, right? These are all voiceovers of using AI. So I don't really, notice certain things until afterwards, or, etc. And I didn't notice that the entire length of this story was an hour and 40 minutes, which is crazy. It's the longest story I think I've written, at least in a long time. And that was just on the 7 chapters, and I had 10 planned out. So I kind of figured that the 8th chapter kind of sounded similar to the 7th and sort of had parts of the 6th in it. So I kind of just scrapped that whole chapter to cut down on time, because with the 9th and 10th chapter that I kind of, adapted, because I'm missing that 8th chapter, I cut it out. It still comes out to about 2 hours and like 10 minutes, and that's without any editing or pausing time or anything like that in between chapters and stuff. So it'll probably come out to like 2.5 hours in total. So this is just part 1 of a 3-part series, I guess. I'll be posting it kind of every 2-3 days, I think. Again, this is the first part, then I'll post the second, which is the next 3 chapters, then I'll post the third part, which is the last 3 chapters. Each one kind of comes out to about 45 minutes or so. And once I post the last part, the third part, right, I'll post a final video, so a 4th video of all 3 parts put together, and then, maybe commentary of the whole thing kind of at the end of what I thought, etc. And that'll be at the end. This is the only one that'll have this kind of intro. The other ones will have a really short intro, so you can just hop right into it. The story is basically about it's about a guardsman squad occupying a planet and defending it against a continuous Tyranid invasion. The Tyranid invasion has been going on for 4 years, and these characters, the main character specifically is the one that we're going to be focusing on. They've been there for the entire time since the beginning of the invasion, and since the beginning of the defense. They gave up on the whole campaigning part and counterattack kind of thing, and they've just been defending for 3-4 years. I know I've been talking for a while now. Again, all the other videos will be a short intro. I just kind of want to say 3 or 2 things before you start listening to this. One thing, again, the AI does its best, but there are some hiccups, so forgive that. One major hiccup that you will hear over and over again, and is kind of funny, is the 113th. It'll call it, the AI will call it the one, what is it? The 100 and 100th 13th. It'll call it like that. I'll show you right now.
The 113th Caledon Rangers.
That's what I mean. You'll hear that a couple times. That was Lysandra's voice, the main character. She has a monologue, and you'll hear her voice, but there's a narrator's voice, so you'll mostly be hearing him. He does a little bit better job, but you'll still hear it. The second thing is that is the focus of the story is more on the tone, the atmosphere, the looming presence. I kind of took the Tyranid threat in what I thought was a different direction, an underlying kind of threat. It does have, the next part will have major battle scenes and stuff. This part has a battle scene in it, and then it has a build up to the next part, right? But yeah, so the focus isn't really about the dialogue necessarily. The dialogue's kind of short and quick. Kind of just gets it to the point, gets you the little intro kind of thing and how the characters work, etc. They work together. You need dialogue in it. And then I kind of focused hardcore on the action scenes, more specifically in part 2 and part 3. This one does have a minor one. I think that's it. There was something else, but I can't remember, to be honest, and I've been talking for a while. So basically, if you enjoy this story, stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 to follow after that. In total, it has about a runtime of 2.5 hours. It will. Each part will be about 45 minutes-ish, something like that. And I do really hope that you enjoy it, because I enjoyed writing it. A little bummed that I had to cut out a chapter, so it might be... I feel like I didn't have like enough time, to like develop the fight scenes and the characters to the point that I wanted to, but I realized that it's already been 2 hours, and so you got to end it at some point. So the characters are a little not so detailed, etc. But again, the point is the action scenes and the atmosphere and tone and everything. All right, if you end up listening to these videos and stuff for the intro, you'll realize that I ramble and just talk a lot. So I'm trying to stop. I'm working on that, don't worry. So please enjoy. What is it like? Like, subscribe, and comment if you do enjoy it, and stay tuned for part 2 and part 3. If you want to just wait until the final video comes out, the 4th video of all 3 parts put together, you can do that. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I really liked writing it. I wish I could flesh out the characters a little bit more, but I think it's great, and I really, really hope you enjoy it. Also, lastly, I'm putting this in after the fact. You're gonna hear me talk to the people that skipped the video or skipped this whole intro in a second here. So I'm just letting you know. It's gonna sound a little stupid and strange to you, but to them it would be like the first time that they. So enjoy. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment. And here is part 1 of a 3-part series called The Flesh Garden. Enjoy. Thank you.
I stand amidst the ruins of Veridius Prime, my boots sinking into the ashen soil that was once teeming with life. My gaze drifts over the devastated landscape, a haunting tableau of a war that has consumed both the planet and my soul. In the eerie silence, my voice, a mere whisper, breaks the stillness. 4 years, I murmur, each word a heavy stone in my chest. 4 years since the 113th Caledon Rangers set foot on this cursed planet. My mind, a maelstrom of memories, catapults me back to that fateful day. The flashback is vivid, unforgiving. We arrived, a band of naive soldiers, eager and untested. The planet greeted us with its lush greenery, a deceptive mask hiding the lurking horror. I remember the vibrant colours, the lively chatter of my squad, and the sense of purpose that filled us. How starkly it contrasts with the desolation that now surrounds me. Early conflicts with the Tyranids were sporadic, almost like testing the waters. We fought with a determination born of ignorance, believing our might and the Emperor's blessing sufficient. I recall the first skirmish, a blur of gunfire, screams, and the alien shrieks of our foes. We were victorious, but at a cost. The first of many comrades fell that day, their youthful faces forever etched in my memory. In those early days, camaraderie was our shield. We bonded in the trenches, shared stories from our homeworlds, and laughed in the face of danger. I find a bitter smile tugging at my lips. Fool's laughter, I whisper, my voice tinged with a sorrow that has deepened with each passing day. As I stand here, a lone figure in a wasteland, the ghosts of my fallen comrades hover around me. Their whispers blend with the wind, a chorus of the damned. I close my eyes, allowing their voices to wash over me, a reminder of what we once were and what we have become. The skies above, now choked with spores, and the shadows of Tyranid bioships bear witness to our struggle. I look up, my eyes tracing the outlines of our Imperial fleet, distant and almost untouchable. A fleeting sense of hope flutters in my heart, quickly smothered by the crushing reality of our situation. Veridius Prime, a planet we were sworn to protect, has become a living nightmare, its transformation a grotesque mirror of my own. The trenches, our home for these endless years, are now part of the Tyranid hive. I feel the alien presence around me, a constant reminder of our impending doom. We thought we were the hunters, but we were the prey all along. The irony is not lost on me. We came as conquerors, only to be conquered, assimilated into the very horror we sought to destroy. The ruins of Veridius Prime stretch before me, a desolate expanse that mirrors the desolation within me. I turn my back to the wreckage, my mind set on the task ahead. There's a war to be fought, a duty to be fulfilled, no matter how hopeless it seems. As I walk back into the labyrinth of trenches, my footsteps are heavy, each one a testament to the weight I carry, swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere of the planet. But my resolve remains, a flickering flame in the overwhelming darkness. This is my story, my burden. I am Guardsman Lysandra of the 113th Caledon Rangers, and this is the tale of Veridius Prime, the planet that devoured us all.
Sergeant Lysandra of the 113th Caledon Rangers stands at the edge of a trench on Veridius Prime, her gaze sweeping over the labyrinthine network of earthworks and fortified positions. The air is heavy, filled with the stench of decay and the metallic tang of spilled blood. The ski dismal grey seems to press down upon the world, suffocating hope under its oppressive weight. In these trenches, life has become a continuous cycle of vigilance and survival. Sergeant Lysandra's squad, a hardened group of soldiers, moves with a mechanical efficiency born of necessity. Each day blurs into the next, punctuated only by sporadic Tyranid attacks and the ever-present gnawing fear of what lies beyond their fortifications. The trenches themselves have transformed from mere defensive structures into grotesque galleries of war. Here, the bones of fallen comrades lie entwined with the twisted remnants of Tyranid bioforms, a grim mosaic of conflict. As Sergeant Lysandra patrols the trench, her boots squelch in the mud, a mixture of soil and alien ichor. She passes by her soldiers, each face a mask of exhaustion and resolve. Corporal Jackson, her second in command, nods grimly as they cross paths, their brief eye contact conveying a world of unspoken understanding. The camaraderie amongst them is palpable, yet it is a bond forged in the crucible of horror, a fragile thread holding them together against the encroaching darkness. Whispers of the Tyranid menace are a constant undercurrent in the trench. Sergeant Lysandra overhears snippets of conversation, soldiers speculating on the next attack, sharing tales of close encounters, their voices tinged with a mix of bravado and terror. Despite their bravado, a growing sense of dread permeates the air, as insidious as the Tyranid presence that encroaches upon their world. In this hellscape, the notion of a normal life has become a distant memory, a ghost haunting the edges of Sergeant Lysandra's mind. She remembers a time before the war, a time of laughter and light, now as alien to her as the Tyranids themselves. But there is no room for such reflections here. Survival demands her full attention, every sense honed to detect the slightest hint of the enemy. As Sergeant Lysandra continues her patrol, her eyes fix on the horizon, where the twisted forms of Tyranid structures mar the once beautiful landscape of Veridius Prime. A sense of foreboding fills her, a silent acknowledgement that this war, this unending nightmare, has only just begun. Sergeant Lysandra trudges through the sinuous trenches of Veridius Prime, her boots sinking into the unnaturally soft earth. The air, thick with the stench of decay and fear, clings to her like a second skin. She pauses, her hazel eyes scanning the grotesque landscape that was once a lush, thriving world. Now it stands as a testament to the horrors of war against the Tyranids, a nightmarish garden of flesh and alien flora.
Everything's changed,
Murmurs Sergeant Lysandra to herself, her voice a mere whisper in the cacophony of distant artillery fire. The plants around the trenches are no longer the familiar green of imperial worlds. They bear a sinister hue, their leaves unfurling like the fingers of a corpse reaching from the grave. The soil, too, feels different beneath her feet, softer, almost sentient, as if pulsating with a life of its own. Corporal Jackson, her second in command, approaches, his face etched with concern.
Sergeant, are you seeing this?
He asks, gesturing toward the altered vegetation. Sergeant Lysandra nods slowly, her gaze never leaving the eerie plants.
It's them, Jackson. The Tyranids are reshaping everything, turning our world into theirs.
The two soldiers continue their patrol, the oppressive atmosphere weighing heavily upon them. Suddenly, a private trooper Mira, a young determined face in the squad, points towards a cluster of trees.
Sarge, look at the birds.
She exclaims. Sergeant Lysandra's gaze follows Trooper Mira's pointing finger. The birds circle erratically, their flight patterns disjointed, as if the very air they glide through is poisoned by the alien presence.
It's like they're trying to escape the planet itself.
Sergeant Lysandra mutters, a sense of foreboding settling in her stomach. The patrol progresses, the sense of something being profoundly wrong growing with each step. Suddenly, Private Cale, the squad's heavy weapons specialist, halts, his expression twisted in horror.
Do you hear that, Sarge? The ground, it's breathing.
Private Cale stammers, his voice trembling. Sergeant Lysandra kneels, placing her ear to the ground. There it is, a faint rhythmic pulsation, like the beating of a gargantuan heart beneath the soil. A shiver runs down her spine as she realizes the planet itself is becoming an extension of the Tyranid hive.
Sergeant, what does it mean?
Trooper Naira, the support infantry, asks, her voice barely a whisper.
It means we're not just fighting the Tyranids.
Sergeant Lysandra replies, standing up.
We're fighting Veridius Prime itself.
As night falls, the squad huddles in a makeshift bunker. The tension is palpable, each soldier lost in their thoughts, grappling with the reality that their battlefield is alive, an enemy as much as the Tyranids themselves. Sergeant Lysandra looks at her squad, her heart heavy with the burden of leadership.
Listen up.
She begins, her voice steady despite the turmoil within.
This planet, our home, is turning against us. But we are the 113th Caledon Rangers. We do not yield, not to the Tyranids, not to this planet.
Her words are met with nods, a silent pact formed in the dim light of the bunker. They are soldiers of the Imperium and they will fight until their last breath, even if it means battling the very ground they stand on. The night passes with whispers echoing through the walls, a constant reminder of the looming threat outside. As dawn breaks, Sergeant Lysandra readies her squad for another day in the trenches, her resolve unbroken. Yet, deep within, she knows the truth. This war is more than a fight for survival. It's a battle against a planet transformed into a grotesque garden of flesh and alien nightmares, a grim struggle in a world where hope seems as distant as the stars above. Deep within the serpentine labyrinth of trenches on Veridius Prime, Sergeant Lysandra leads her squad, the 113th Caledon Rangers, on a somber patrol. The trench, a jagged scar cut into the planet's flesh, provides a stark contrast to the Tyranid-altered landscape, sprawling ominously beyond their fortified walls.
Stay vigilant.
Lysandra instructs, her voice barely rising above a whisper. Each step they take is measured, cautious, reverberating softly against the earthen walls. The trench itself is a grim reminder of the ongoing war, its walls a patchwork of metal reinforcements and hastily dug earth. Private Cale, his heavy weapon resting on his shoulder, peers nervously at the alien vista beyond their protective confines.
This silence, it's like the calm before a storm, Sarge.
He mutters, his gaze fixed on the distant, twisted shapes that mar the horizon. Lysandra nods, her hazel eyes scanning the grotesque tableau before them. The Tyranids have reshaped Veridius Prime into a nightmarish landscape, their bioforms and structures melding with the natural environment to create a tableau of horror.
Their presence is everywhere.
She remarks, her voice tinged with a weary resolve.
We're mere intruders here.
Specialist Tira, positioned a few paces behind, focuses her sniper's scope on a distant Tyranid structure.
Look at that.
She says, her tone a mix of fear and fascination.
The way those spires twist and turn, it's like they're alive.
Indeed, the Tyranid constructions possess an eerie semblance of life, their surfaces pulsating subtly, as if breathing. Lysandra shivers slightly, the sight unnerving in its alien familiarity. The Tyranids haven't just invaded Veridius Prime, they've woven themselves into its very essence. As the squad moves deeper into the trench network, the oppressive silence weighs heavily upon them. Their footsteps and hushed voices are the only sounds in a world that seems to hold its breath. Corporal Jackson, Lysandra's right hand, falls into step beside her.
What do you think they're planning, Sarge?
He asks, his voice low. Lysandra glances at the bioorganic panorama visible beyond the trench.
It's hard to say, but the Tyranids are never idle. They're preparing, evolving.
The silence stretches on, a haunting prelude to the unspoken horrors that await. The squad members exchange wary looks, their unease growing with each step through the winding trenches. The patrol continues, with Lysandra leading her squad through the convoluted maze of trenches. Every so often, they stop to observe the alien landscape, watching for any sign of movement or impending attack. As they near the end of their patrol route, Lysandra pauses, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon, where the twisted silhouettes of the Tyranid swarm loom. She feels a surge of dread mixed with determination.
This war, it's far from over.
She says, more to herself than to her squad.
We'll be ready, Sarge.
Corporal Jackson responds, his voice steady. Lysandra and her squad make their way back to the relative safety of their command post, the unsettling stillness of the trenches echoing around them. In the grim darkness of their world, they brace for the inevitable conflict, their resolve unbroken despite the overwhelming odds. The war on Veridius Prime is a testament to their endurance, a grim dance with an enemy that seeks to consume everything in its path. Chapter 2: The War That Consumed the World. The trenches of Veridius Prime stretch before guardsman Lysandra, like the veins of a decaying leviathan, a network of despair carved deep into the planet's flesh. From her vantage point, the vast labyrinth seems to breathe, each shuddering exhale filled with the stench of death and the alien taint of the Tyranids. The sky above, once a canvas of vibrant hues, now drowns under a canopy of ominous spore clouds, casting a perpetual twilight over the scarred landscape. Patrolling these trenches is a ritual in vigilance and dread. Guardsman Lysandra leads her squad, the 113th Caledon Rangers, through the serpentine maze, their steps a rhythmic echo in the vast emptiness. They move with a purpose born of necessity, maintaining their weapons with meticulous care, each action a small defiance against the overwhelming sense of futility.
Keep your eyes sharp.
Lysandra instructs, her voice a hushed command that cuts through the oppressive silence. Her hazel eyes, hardened by years of conflict, scan the horizon for any sign of the Tyranid menace. Corporal Jackson, a stoic figure with a strategic mind, nods in agreement.
Every shadow could be a lurking death,
He replies, his gaze never leaving the trench walls, overgrown with alien flora that seem to watch them with a sinister intent. Private Cale, the heavy weapons specialist of the group, clutches his gun tighter, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips.
I'd prefer a Tyranid over another night listening to Vox's snoring.
He jests, trying to lighten the mood. Lysandra offers a small, weary smile. It's a fleeting moment of camaraderie, a brief respite from the unrelenting grimness of their reality. But the smile quickly fades, replaced by the ever-present shadow of despair that haunts her thoughts. The squad continues their march, the rhythmic sound of their boots a somber drumbeat against the earth. They pass remnants of battles long past, the trench walls adorned with the detritus of war, shattered helmets, spent shell casings and faded banners. Each item tells a silent tale of valor and loss, a reminder of the countless lives swallowed by this endless conflict. As they delve deeper into the trenches, the air grows thicker, a miasma of decay and alien corruption. The landscape around them is a grotesque tapestry of the Tyranids' work, the once verdant flora now twisted into nightmarish shapes, serving the whims of the hive mind. Lysandra pauses, her senses heightened. The eerie silence is oppressive, a prelude to the storm she knows is coming. She glances back at her squad, their faces etched with lines of weariness and resolve. They are her responsibility, her family forged in the crucible of war. The distant sound of artillery fire rumbles through the air, a grim reminder of the ongoing conflict. Lysandra's thoughts drift to the countless battles they have faced, the friends they have lost. Each memory is a scar upon her soul, a testament to the brutal nature of this war. The trenches stretch out before her, a maze of despair and resilience, a battleground where hope is a rare commodity. In the grim darkness of Veridius Prime, she prepares her squad for the horrors that await, a never-ending struggle against an enemy as relentless as time itself. Guardsman Lysandra stands amidst the ruinous trenches of Veridius Prime, her gaze drifting across the grotesque transformation of what was once a lush world. The alien flora, bizarre in their appearances, stretch across the scarred landscape, hinting at the insidious Tyranid presence. Lysandra's fingers brush against the strange chitinous plants, her expression a mix of curiosity and growing unease. A disturbance catches Lysandra's attention. A flock of native birds, now deformed, flutter erratically above. Their strange behavior, avoiding certain areas as if repulsed or terrified, speaks of an unnatural influence pervading the air. Lysandra watches, a sense of dread building within her. Her patrol leads her to Trooper Silas, who seems lost in his own world, muttering under his breath.
The ground. It breathes. Whispers in the walls.
He says, his eyes wide with fear. Lysandra places a hand on his shoulder, trying to ground him in reality, but his words echo in her mind, amplifying the growing sense of terror. Climbing to a vantage point, Lysandra surveys the alien landscape. The sight is a stark contrast to her memories of Veridius Prime, now a world twisted by Tyranid corruption. The natural beauty is replaced by a nightmarish tableau where the ground seems to pulsate with a sinister life of its own. Gathering her squad for a briefing, Lysandra's voice is somber yet firm. She emphasizes the need for vigilance, not just against the visible Tyranid threats, but also the unseen ones. Medic Ilara and Engineer Vox nod in agreement, their faces set with grim determination. As they traverse the trenches, the squad encounters a grotesque scene, a Tyranid creature feasting on the remains of a fallen comrade. The sight is a visceral reminder of the horror they face, a grotesque blend of the familiar and the alien. The squad readies their weapons, their expressions a mix of horror and resolve. The encounter quickly escalates into a fierce skirmish. Lysandra leads the charge, her chainsword cutting through the Tyranid bioforms with brutal efficiency. Each swing of her blade is a dance with death, her movements both graceful and savage. The squad follows her lead, their laser guns blazing, carving a path through the swarm. In the heat of battle, Lysandra's senses sharpen, her instincts heightened by the adrenaline rush. She moves with a predatory precision, her every strike a testament to her skill and resilience. The action is relentless, the clash of steel against chitin filling the air with a cacophony of violence. As the last of the Tyranid creatures fall, the squad catches their breath, the aftermath a stark reminder of their grim reality. The trenches are filled with the echoes of their battle, a grim chorus to the tragedy that unfolds daily on Veridius Prime. Returning to their base, Lysandra reflects on the day's events. Her thoughts are heavy with the weight of their losses, the hopelessness of their situation pressing down on her. Yet, amidst the despair, a flicker of determination remains. They are the Imperium's last line of defense on this forsaken world, and they will stand their ground no matter the cost. Lysandra gazed into the night sky, the stars obscured by the Tyranid spores. Her face is weary, yet resolute, a symbol of the unyielding human spirit in the face of overwhelming darkness. The haunting monologue of her thoughts serves as a poignant reminder of the cost of war, a price paid in blood and tears under the shadow of a grim universe. Sergeant Lysandra crouches low, her hazel eyes scanning the murky twilight of Veridius Prime's ravaged landscape. She's a silhouette against the alien-infused horrors that have overrun her once verdant world, now a macabre garden of flesh and chitin. The trenches, a labyrinthine network of despair, stretch out like open wounds, reflecting the sky's sickly pallor. The air is thick with the promise of nightmares. A patrol, her faithful Caledon Rangers, moves with her, each step a testament to their resilience and their unspoken dread. Specialist Tira's sniper rifle whispers death, its barrel glinting briefly as they pass a rare beam of moonlight. Engineer Vox's tech-savvy hands are forever fiddling, adjusting, preparing, and Scout Lawn, ever silent, leads them through the twisted underbrush that this planet has become.
Keep sharp.
Lysandra's voice is a gravelly murmur, barely audible over the sound of their own cautious movements and the distant, unsettling calls of Tyranid beasts.
We're not alone.
Indeed, the mutated fauna, a grotesque parody of nature's intent, watches them with unseen eyes. As they progress, a shape moves at the edge of Lysandra's vision. A small creature, barely the size of a child's toy, but its presence sends a chill down her spine. Its form is a disturbing blend of the planet's original creatures and the invasive Tyranid biology. Even in the dim light, its bioluminescent parts cast an eerie glow.
By the Emperor.
Whispers Medic Ilara, her voice a mix of fear and fascination.
Don't touch it.
Lysandra commands, her gaze never leaving the creature.
This is what they do, twist and corrupt. Remember who we are and what we're doing here.
They move on, leaving the creature behind, but its image lingers in Lysandra's mind, a symbol of the planet's, and perhaps their own, inevitable transformation. As night fully claims the sky, they find themselves back in the trenches, the oppressive closeness a grim comfort against the vastness of the alien landscape. Here, the sounds of the Tyranids are closer, more personal. Whispers of chitin on dirt, the faint rustling of wings and distant haunting cries fill the air, melding into a chorus of dread. They take turns keeping watch, eyes fixed on the murky nothingness beyond the trench. But it's not just the darkness they fear, it's the silence, the anticipation of a horror they know is coming, but can never fully prepare for. In her quarters, a small, cramped space she's claimed as her own, Lysandra sits with her journal. The pages are filled with her neat, compact handwriting. Observations, orders, the names of the fallen. Her latest entry is a reflection of the day, a recount of the creature they encountered, her fears for her squad, her planet.
It's like the very soul of Veridius Prime is being devoured bit by bit.
She writes.
And I fear what will be left of us when it's done.
Her hand hesitates above the paper, then continues, each word a struggle against the despair that threatens to consume her.
We fight. Not because we hope to win, but because we must. Because even in this hell we carry the light of the Emperor, the spirit of humanity. And perhaps in the end that will be enough.
Outside, the sounds of the night continue. The distant roar of a Tyranid predator, the soft, trembling response of its prey, the unending whispers of an alien world. Inside, Lysandra closes her journal, the ink still wet on the page. She stares into the darkness of her quarters, the weight of command, of survival heavy on her shoulders. But even as she contemplates the grim future, a small, defiant flame of resolve kindles within her. She is Guardsman Lysandra, Sergeant of the 113th Caledon Rangers. No matter how grotesque the enemy, how subtle its encroachments, she will stand firm, for her squad, for her planet, for the Imperium. Chapter 3. The Landscape Transformed. The trenches of Veridius Prime, once mere scars upon a vibrant world, now stretch like open wounds across a planet transformed. Tyranid biomorphic structures rise ominously, a grotesque mockery of the planet's native flora. Amidst this alien landscape, Guardsman Lysandra, Sergeant of the 113th Caledon Rangers, stands at a trench vantage point, her gaze lost in the eerie transformation before her. Guardsman Lysandra's voice, a soft, haunting murmur, breaks the oppressive silence.
4 years.
She begins, her words laced with a growing sense of despair.
4 years on Veridius Prime, and I've watched it die 1,000 deaths. Each day a little more of what it once was slips away, consumed by this living nightmare.
Her squad, scattered around her in the trench, listens in somber silence. Corporal Jackson, a shadow of his former self, nods in quiet agreement, his eyes reflecting the same loss and weariness that haunt Lysandra's.
We fight not just the Tyranids,
Lysandra continues.
but the very planet we stand on. It's no longer our world. It breathes, it bleeds, but not for us. For them. The Tyranids have woven themselves into its very essence, turning our battlefield into a grotesque garden of their flesh.
Specialist Tira, once a sharpshooter with an unbreakable spirit, now looks out over the alien terrain with a hollow gaze.
The planet itself is against us, Sergeant.
She whispers, her voice barely audible.
Every step we take, every breath we draw, it's as if Veridius Prime itself wishes to expel us, like we're the invaders.
The air around them is thick with a palpable sadness, the unspoken acknowledgement of their hopeless situation. Private Cale, his youthful enthusiasm long since eroded by the horrors of war, clenches his fists, the knuckles white.
So what do we do, Sergeant? Keep fighting. For what?
Lysandra turns her gaze to her squad, her eyes glimmering with a complex mix of resolve and sorrow.
We fight because that's all we have left, Cale. We fight because giving in means letting this world, our comrades' sacrifices, be for nothing.
Her words, though intended to inspire, hang heavy in the trench, a somber reminder of their grim reality. Medic Ilara, her hands stained with the blood of too many fallen comrades, looks up from her medkit, her eyes meeting Lysandra's.
And what of us, Sergeant? What happens when we can no longer distinguish ourselves from the horrors we battle?
Lysandra's gaze drifts back to the alien landscape, the Tyranid structures pulsating in the distance.
Then we become part of Veridius Prime's tragic tale.
She replies. her voice a mere whisper, yet carrying the weight of their collective dread.
A tale of soldiers who fought not just an enemy, but the very world they sought to protect.
As the echo of Lysandra's words fades, the trench falls silent once more, each soldier lost in their own reflections. The grotesque beauty of the Tyranid-altered world stretches before them, a constant reminder of their fading hope and the unrelenting terror that defines their existence on Veridius Prime. Amid the suffocating trenches of Veridius Prime, a planet now more alien than terrestrial, Sergeant Lysandra of the 113th Caledon Rangers stands, her gaze fixed upon a grotesque testament to the Tyranids' insidious influence. Beside her, Specialist Tira, her features etched with apprehension, scrutinizes the pulsating plants that have emerged from the war-ravaged soil. The flora, a perverse mimicry of nature, throbs with an ungodly rhythm, their vibrant hues stark against the grey pallor of the trench.
Look at them.
Tira whispers, her voice barely audible over the distant clamor of war.
It's as if Veridius Prime itself is transforming, succumbing to these abominations.
Lysandra's response is a silent nod, her mind a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. The sergeant's scar, a stark line down her cheek, seems to pulse in tandem with the alien growths, a physical echo of the planet's violation. Further along the trench, Private Kale and Medic Ilara exchange troubled glances. The air, thick with an almost tangible dread, weighs heavily upon their shoulders. Ilara's hands, usually so steady when tending to the wounded, tremble slightly as she points toward a cluster of bioluminescent fungi.
By the Emperor.
She murmurs.
The very ground we walk on, it's as if it's alive, watching, waiting.
Her voice trails off, the implications too horrific to voice fully. Sergeant Lysandra, overhearing Ilara's observation, turns her gaze towards the creeping vines that have begun to intertwine with the trench's fortifications. The vines move with an unsettling autonomy, their tendrils slowly encroaching upon the human-made structures.
Vox.
Lysandra calls out, her tone commanding yet laced with an undercurrent of uncertainty.
What do you make of this?
Engineer Vox, his eyes shielded behind tech-enhanced goggles, scans the creeping vines.
It's like nothing I've ever seen, Sergeant. The Tyranids, they're not just altering the landscape, they're weaving it into something otherworldly.
The squad gathered around their sergeant, each bears the weight of the war's horrors in their own way. Their faces, once youthful and determined, now carry the burden of endless conflict, a silent testament to the price of their struggle. As Lysandra leads her squad deeper into the trench network, the atmosphere grows increasingly oppressive. The distant sounds of artillery and alien roars merge into a haunting cacophony, a soundtrack to the madness that has enveloped Veridius Prime.
Stay vigilant.
Lysandra instructs, her voice steady despite the growing unease clawing at her mind.
We don't know what we're dealing with here.
The squad advances, their movements cautious and deliberate. Each step takes them further into a landscape that defies reality, where the familiar horrors of war blend with the grotesque manifestations of an alien ecology. The trench, once a refuge against the Tyranid onslaught, now feels like a corridor leading into the maw of madness itself. In the shadows of this transformed world, Sergeant Lysandra's thoughts turn inward. The war has taken much from her, comrades, innocence, and perhaps even a part of her humanity. As she leads her squad through the eerie silence of the trenches, she can't shake the feeling that Veridius Prime, with its alien-infested landscapes, is a mirror to her own soul. Scarred, transformed, and teetering on the brink of an abyss, the journey through the trenches becomes a macabre exploration, a passage through a world that is both familiar and utterly alien. With each step, the subtle horror of their situation becomes more apparent, and the growing sense of dread among the squad palpable. Sergeant Lysandra and her squad confront not only the physical enemy of the Tyranids, but also the psychological terror of a world and a Warsaw that has warped beyond recognition. In the dim light of a makeshift command center, hewn from the very bowels of Veridius Prime, Guardsman Lysandra stands before the 113th Caledon Rangers. Her hazel eyes, once a beacon of resilience, now mirror the despair suffusing the trenches. The air is thick, not just with the stench of war, but with the heavy weight of an impending doom.
Listen up.
Lysandra's voice cuts through the silence, as firm as the ground beneath their feet, yet tinged with an unspoken dread.
The Tyranids won't give us a warning. They never do. Stay sharp, stay alive. Remember, these are no mere beasts. They're the embodiment of our nightmares, and they will stop at nothing.
Trooper Mira, her youthful face a contrast to the war-hardened visages around her, shifts uneasily.
Sergeant, how do we prepare for something we can't predict?
Her voice, though steady, betrays the fear lurking beneath. Lysandra meets Mira's gaze, her own fears masked behind a veneer of composure.
We adapt, we survive. It's what we've always done.
The words are meant to inspire, but they hang in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken horrors. The quiet before the storm settles over the trenches, a suffocating stillness that belies the carnage to come. Guardsman Lysandra patrols the labyrinthine network, her steps measured, her senses attuned to every whisper of the wind, every rustle in the dark. Trooper Harlan, a man whose humor had once been as robust as his stature, now stands quietly beside the trench wall.
It's too quiet,
he mutters, his usual jovial tone subdued by the oppressive atmosphere.
Feels like the whole planet's holding its breath.
Lysandra nods, her scarred cheek twitching slightly.
It's the calm before the storm, Harlan. But we're the storm they never saw coming.
As night envelops Veridius Prime, the soldiers gather in small clusters. Their interactions a mix of camaraderie and tension. Corporal Jackson, Lysandra's second-in-command, joins her, his gaze scanning the horizon.
We're not just fighting a war, Lysandra,
Jackson says, his voice a low rumble.
We're fighting for our very existence.
Lysandra's response is a mere whisper, lost in the howling wind.
And we'll keep fighting, Jackson, until our last breath.
The soldiers share stories, their laughter a temporary balm to the festering wounds of war. Private Cale, the heavy weapons specialist, recounts tales of Caledon IV, their homeworld, his words painting a picture of a life far removed from the horrors of Veridius Prime. But the laughter dies quickly, smothered by the growing sense of unease. Lysandra's eyes never cease moving, always watching, always waiting. The dread grows with each passing moment, a creeping vine in the hearts of the soldiers. In the depths of the trench, Medic Ilara tends to a wounded soldier. Her hands move with practiced ease, but her eyes are clouded with uncertainty.
Will we ever see an end to this, Sergeant?
She asks, her voice barely audible over the soldier's labored breathing. Lysandra crouches beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder.
We may not see the end, Ilara, but we'll fight to make sure others do.
The night deepens, and with it the tension mounts. Lysandra stands watch, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The distant roars of the Tyranids swarm echo in her ears, a grotesque symphony heralding the nightmare to come. In the trenches of Veridius Prime, amidst the whispers of fear and the ghostly echoes of war, Guardsman Lysandra and the 113th Caledon Rangers brace for the onslaught. They stand together, united in their resolve, yet each soldier grapples with their own despair, their own fading hope, for in the heart of the flesh garden hope is but a fleeting shadow, swallowed by the ever-growing darkness. In the oppressive darkness of Veridius Prime, Sergeant Lysandra stands sentinel, her gaze piercing the murky night. The air is thick with the scent of decay, a pungent reminder of the planet's tragic transformation. Around her, the trenches, a maze of despair, echo with the soft murmurs of her squad. The night is unnervingly silent save for the faint, distant roars of the Tyranid swarm, a sinister orchestra heralding doom. Scout Lorne's voice cuts through the silence, his words a whisper in the darkness.
They're coming, aren't they?
Lysandra hears the fear underlying his query. She doesn't respond, her attention fixed on the horizon, where shadows dance in the faint light of distant stars. Trooper Vega, standing nearby, adds, her voice barely above a hush.
The ground, it feels different tonight, like it's alive, waiting.
The soldiers around her nod in silent agreement, their faces etched with dread. Lysandra senses their unease, a growing cancer in the heart of her squad. Suddenly, the earth trembles subtly beneath their feet, a foreboding heartbeat pulsing through the soil. The air grows denser, charged with a palpable sense of impending horror. The subtle vibration intensifies, a morbid lullaby that whispers of the approaching nightmare. In this climactic moment, a distant cacophony shatters the eerie calm. The sound is terrifying, a chaotic symphony of alien shrieks and roars that freezes the squad in fear and anticipation. The noise swells, a tidal wave of sound that washes over them, leaving a residue of dread. Sergeant Lysandra's eyes widen in realization.
Brace yourselves,
she commands, her voice steady despite the terror gripping her heart.
The swarm is upon us.
Her squad, seasoned yet visibly shaken, prepares for the onslaught, their weapons raised in a futile gesture of defiance. The environment around them shifts ominously. The trench walls, once mere earth and metal, now pulsate with a grotesque life of their own, reshaped by the Tyranids' sinister influence. Alien flora, their twisted forms illuminated by the sparse light, seem to lean in, spectators to the impending massacre. In this moment, Lysandra feels an overwhelming sense of despair. The transformation of Veridius Prime from a thriving world to this nightmarish landscape mirrors the change within her own soul. Once a soldier filled with hope, she now stands a guardian of a doomed world, her spirit eroded by the ceaseless war against an unrelenting foe. The distant roar of the Tyranids swarm crescendos, a relentless tide of horror that threatens to engulf them. Lysandra grips her weapon tighter, knowing that the battle ahead is not just for survival, but for the very soul of Veridius Prime. Her squad, a band of brothers and sisters in arms, stands united in the face of despair. Their eyes meet in the dim light, each acknowledging the other's fear and resolve. They are the last line of defense against a threat that seeks to consume not just their bodies, but the essence of their humanity. As the swarm draws nearer, a suffocating sense of inevitability descends upon them. Lysandra knows that the battle they are about to engage in is more than a clash of flesh and blood. It is a fight against the erosion of hope, against the darkness that seeks to swallow the light of their souls. In this moment of grim realization, Sergeant Lysandra stands resolute, a beacon of courage in a world consumed by terror and despair. Her voice, a calm amidst the storm, echoes in the trenches.
Hold the line for the Imperium, for humanity.
Her words, though spoken softly, carry the weight of their grim destiny, a rallying cry in the heart of darkness that is Veridius Prime.
And that was the Flesh Garden, part 1 at least. Stay tuned for part 2 and part 3. They're going to be posted maybe 2 to 3 days. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned. Thank you so much.